I am the nervous system of my business. The most important thing is not so much what I am doing all the time, but more who I am being and what I believe about myself, because people can smell that from miles away. And that's the signal that you broadcast constantly.
Hi, welcome back for another episode of Founder Real Talk by Wisdom Partners. I'm Josh Broward. I'm your host. And in case this is your first time with us, and let me just tell you what we're doing here. We hear two things all the time from founders. One is, I'm lonely. And the other is, I thought I was the only one who had this problem. And so what we're trying to do with this podcast is kill two birds with one stone. You are not alone. And other founders are struggling with the same kind of crap you're struggling with. And that doesn't mean you're bad or a bad founder or any of that. It just means this is where you are on the journey. So today we get a different kind of founder, not a tech bro. We get Giulia Eve Flores, who is the founder of Lila Studios. She's an actress, a writer, a producer, and a studio founder. And Lila Studios produces transformational cinema, trying to open hearts, expand minds, dig into human consciousness. And I'm really excited to hear more about the studio overall and their latest big project, Echo. So without any further ado, Giulia, thanks for being here. Really glad to have you on the call, on the
I'm so
podcast.
happy to be here. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. And yeah, it's such a joy, such a pleasure to be here. I'm so happy you're doing this. I feel like this is really enlightening and helpful for many, many founders and many people who want to be founders potentially too.
Why does it resonate with you in particular?
I think the entrepreneurial path, the founder path, to name it spiritually, is an initiatory path. I feel like anything that we create, whether that's a specific project or a whole company, it's the ultimate reflection of who we are, right? It's an extension of who we are. It's an amplification of who we are. And so anything that isn't fully flowing within, any self-limiting beliefs, anything that's holding us stuck will be magnified in any type of creation that you're trying to outpour and project out from you, And so I feel like talking about that, normalizing the challenges that we face on what for me is almost a spiritual path, an initiatory rite, so to speak, to share more of what flows through me. And I feel like many founders as well, what their contribution is to give that to the world. Yeah, I think it's helpful to have that community understanding and to kind of understand the path better. For me, it's not just a straight business path. For me, everything is an extension of self. And so to really understand what the path actually is and how do we really grow business or grow our projects and become successful, whatever that means to anyone, from the inside out, I think is super important and super enlightening. Yeah, for anyone that's on that path or wanting to embark on that path.
I love that. It makes me think of one of my favorite leader development quotes: the inner game drives the outer game.
Yes, it's everything.
Yeah.
It really is everything. And maybe I'm a little bit more extreme in that. I wonder if it's different as a female founder as well. I work a lot with polarity, the idea of polarity in business and in creation. And obviously, as a female, feminine being, I feel that the way that I create and manifest and power and am the creative engine behind my projects and bring that out to people might function in a different way than most tech bros, as you said at the beginning. And a lot of that has to do with polarity and with understanding that everything is a reflection from the inner world, right? So whatever you're seeing outside of yourself, patterns, obstacles, things that are continuously coming onto your path, is trying to show you something that's happening internally that you might not have fully cleared yet. And I think a lot of my work, being a pretty new founder, at least of Lila Studios, not even a year old, it's only 6 months old and doing really well. I think it's it's grown so fast, and people ask me, how'd you do that? And I'm a strategic person. I won't deny that. I'm definitely a strategic person. I'm an organized person. And this is clearly in my line of dharma, you know? But I will also say that most of the journey and most of the growth and most of the expansion I've experienced and have been able to manifest, so to speak, has come from an energetic, emotional, nervous system mindset, and really like working on that. And that's really where the greatest success for me has come from.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
So tell us a little more about Lila Studios. Why did you start this? What are you trying to accomplish?
Lila Studios for me is it's my big passion project. So before this, I was a producer at Gaia TV. So Gaia is the biggest, for those who don't know, the biggest conscious media network in the world. And so I was a producer there for 3.5 years, produced 12 original series, was the writer, developer, narrator, was their social media face, was their MC for a while, their event host. And so I learned a lot on that job. Prior to that, I had a nonprofit conscious theater company that would create transformational theater. My background's mostly in theater. And so I came to a point at Gaia where I felt, you know, with all love and gratitude and grace, I would not be who I am and be where I am without that experience. And I had a fantastic time. But at a certain point, I felt like I needed, there's something was inside of me that I was constantly, you know, containing and couldn't fully spread my wings. And I really realized I needed to create my own thing again. And so Lila Studios is kind of the culmination of everything that I have done before as an actress, as a writer, as a producer, a theater maker, nonprofit founder before, workshop runner, showrunner at Gaia. And it started with a very simple, it has a simple premise. I want to create transformational cinema that moves us deeply and also moves us forward, and in a very entertaining, dazzling way with sparkle, you know, can inspire people, uplift and unite humanity, and kind of remind us of who we are and where we've come from potentially and where we're going, and also most importantly who we have the potential to become together, you know. So I am very invested in creating modern myths, so to speak, that have that deep heroic template within them that can open minds and really make us think beyond the box in terms of like who we are, why we're here, where our blockages are really as a species almost, and to inspire people into what I would call as the next evolution of humanity in a way that's non-dogmatic, in a way that's not, okay, I'm listening to a lecture, in a way that's, you know, really pulling you into a modern myth, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think I'm hearing you say you want to leverage the power of story through cinema
yes.
to help us grow as a society, as humans.
Yes. Yeah, I think story historically it's a mirror, you know. Storytelling is so ancient and so fundamental and foundational to who we are as human beings, as is creative expression, artistic expression in general. And I feel like, you know, story is the ultimate mirror. And so the stories of our time always show us who we are, where we've come from, and what we are becoming. And so for me, the themes that I want to explore are always going to have to do with human potential and consciousness in a way that inspires, in a way that's innovative. I'm very much an innovator. I want to create cinema in a different way, and I want to create the transmission that's happening in a way, hopefully, that has not been done before. So that's my dream and my vision with this. And we have a big narrative film project. That's my, at this moment, at least in my life, my magnum opus that I'll love to talk to you about. And we also have, we're in production for 2 documentaries as well. So we're doing both narrative and documentary. And yeah, it's been going surprisingly well.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I do want to hear more about Echo, but I want to pull the thread a little bit more
Mm.
on using story as a teaching tool, I guess you might call it, or
Yes.
transformation tool. I've
Yes.
done some at a different stage in my life. I did a lot of public speaking, like every
Mm,
week, whether I was teaching in a classroom or speaking
mm,
on a stage. And one of the things that I became convinced of is story enables truth to come in a side door.
exactly.
If I sometimes it's appropriate to
Be
lay it
direct.
out in 3
Yeah.
points. It's let's tackle this one head on. Here's the thing I need you to understand. Here's where we're going. Other
Yes.
times it's much more effective to sort of like go take them on a journey, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Waha! Here's the real
Yes.
thing."
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
how do
exactly.
you deal with that from a cinema perspective?
Yeah, so I am so with you. I fully believe that too. It's like if you have a message, which every creator, every artist has, the good ones at least, but I think everyone does. You want to hide that message. You want to hide the teaching. You want the ending, the culmination of the story that you're bringing people on this journey on. It has to be both surprising and inevitable. You have to feel like, of course of course it had to end that way. Of course that's the conclusion. Of course that's the message, but you've got to hide it the whole way through. And I think that's the art form. I also feel like that, that kind of ties hand in hand with what you're saying is that we humans, like someone can lecture us, and there's lectures that have been life-changing to me that have super inspired me. Articles I've read and things that were more directly explained, so to speak, have 100% inspired me and changed the way that I thought. But I think the things that have transformed me the most have always come through some type of story, whether it's film or a play or a novel, a poem even, where it's like you said, it's coming in through the back door. It's coming in a way that you didn't expect it. And it's engaging us as humans. We are super emotional beings. It's engaging us emotionally, right? It's engaging us on a cellular level, which is the beauty of being such empathic creatures. And so for us, I think for humans, we download true breakthrough kind of revelations or even just big realizations around certain things, or really grasping the message of something, we download that through emotion. So if we don't have a cathartic type of release, if we don't have an emotional investment or an emotional engagement with something that's, that we're following completely, we're really on the edge of our seats, and we're like so invested, and then that big payoff comes, that's where the biggest, like on a cellular level, on a biological level, we're having the biggest download and realization that can completely transform who we are in a positive way and inspire us towards a next iteration of self, And sometimes that happens through more direct teaching. Like I said, I do acknowledge that, but I think the most powerful ways, and I think that's why humans have been hooked on storytelling in some way, shape, or form, cinema being the most, engaging, most immersive tool that we have today. Yeah, I think it's there's something, so powerful, so easy, so effortless, and so inevitable about it. But we've got to be careful on the other end too, right? Because it's like when we're watching a program, it is programming us. It's putting us into let's say a theta brain state or a different brain state where we're absorbing so much of what we're consuming in terms of entertainment. And I think also, without having to completely ignore the, heavier topics in the world, I think we absolutely should address them. We also, I think, want to be aware that we are consuming a lot of violence and a lot of shadowy topics, so to speak. And that's why I don't shy away from heavier topics at all. I think we should go into them, but I always want to make sure that we come out in a way that's integrating that shadow and coming to the light in a way that's empowering, uplifting, and uniting for every single audience member.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, thank you.
Giulia, what has been a win over the past year that you're really proud of?
I would honestly say, I would start by saying that I knew I had to quit my job at Gaia for a while. Again, there was nothing wrong with the specific situation other than for me, it was no longer aligned. And for me, it was like, and I feel like this kind of call, it's kind of the hero's call that a lot of founders, I think, go through. Maybe some of them are lucky enough to step into that entrepreneurial path straight away. And I actually did, but then went to corporate and then came back. But there was just, my soul was just saying something is off, something is off. And it would manifest in different ways to show me that, right? And at a certain point, I am a female founder. I'm also a single mother founder with barely any family around and definitely not anywhere near me. And so it was hard for me to make the decision that my soul was calling for, which was the creation of Lila Studios and really stepping into my dharma and like where I feel and know I can make the greatest contribution to everyone around me and to the audiences at large, to humanity, so to speak. And so it was hard for me. And I feel like I was teetering on the edge of the cliff for so long because if I was solo, I'm a risk taker and I'm like, you know what? I'll figure it out. I moved to this country with $200 to my name. I figured it out. I've taken risks in life, calculated, thoughtful, but risks that have always paid off. But when you are a single mom and you have no savings and no plan B and no one else around, and I knew I wasn't supposed to take another corporate job, that is terrifying. So it took me a good 10 months really to come to the point of no return within myself where I was like, enough is enough. I literally cannot go a day longer like this, So quitting my job was huge. That was about 7 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that. And then having this openness and being like, okay, well, what do we do? What do we really want to do, and how do we do it? And that for me, this path has been an initiatory path into becoming more of who I am, and becoming all of who I am step by step, and calling in more pieces of myself and being more fearless and bold about that. I think also the pressure that I was in allowed me to not overthink, allowed me to not overindulge my doubts and fears too much. Like, oh, is this good enough? Is this going to work out? Like, I literally didn't have time, energy, space, or capacity. I just had to go and just try to keep, I think I'm an optimistic person anyway, and I'm an entrepreneurial, proactive person with ideas, and that helps, of course. But yeah, I think that initial step, it was only after the first few months when my first income started coming in, my project started going, that I was able to look back and see kind of how I walked over this little drawbridge, from cliff to cliff, and was so focused on the horizon and where I wanted to go that I don't think I was fully aware that I could have plummeted any minute. It was only in retrospect that I realized, wow, that was a big risk, and then being able to kind of, okay, sit with myself, with my nervous system, like, well done, you did it, we're here. And I think it is a big achievement for me I think it's the first time in my life, which is also, why timing is so important. But it's the first time in my life, like I've created and been successful at things before, not without its obstacles, but I think this was the first time where I really felt every door is open. Oh, every door is open. There are no doors. I'm just walking and creating. And I feel like the timing for me was really ripe for that. And to have grown my business, in 6 months from zero income, nothing, to multi six figures, I think feels like, wow, okay, we did that. And so I call it a quantum leap in my career and my lifestyle, in the way that I am now able to show up for my kids too, in a very different way. But a lot of that, if not almost all of that, was really like nervous system work and capacity work, for how much responsibility can I hold? How much finances can I hold? How much do I feel comfortable in my nervous system managing? Because things were expanding to the degree that I was able to adjust my capacity to feel comfortable with the amount of visibility, the amount of influence, the amount of responsibility, and the amount of finances that I was suddenly in charge of.
Let's dig into that a little bit. Most founders would be thrilled to go from 0 to 6 figures in 6 months.
Yeah.
And I often don't take into account or are surprised by the stress impact of that kind of rapid growth.
Yes.
What did you do to take care of yourself during that? Well, at first you're walking across the drawbridge
Yes.
with nothing,
Nothing.
nothing except who you are,
No
is
guardrails. Yeah.
which is significant. Who you are is and who you are becoming is what empowered this journey,
Yeah.
but it still can feel really naked,
Yeah.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Let's think about it in two pieces. What did you do before it started working, before stuff started clicking? And then once it started clicking and it was growing really fast, what did you do for self-care?
That's such a great question. Yeah, because like I said a few times now, this has really been the root. This has been everything. So anyone listening in that wants to experience a similar type of growth, and I do believe I can bring it to 7 figures in the next year, everything has been this work. So I'm so happy to be able to share this. So initially, I was terrified. I was excited and terrified. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was aligned. I knew I was aligned, but that doesn't take away the fact that I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? I had no business experience other than I ran my nonprofit, and I learned to run my nonprofit on the fly too. I was just trying to figure it out myself. I didn't go to business school. I didn't know financials. I didn't know any of this. I do think I have a knack and an instinct for it, but probably not to the degree that most founders would, honestly. So I've had to learn a lot, and I've had to research a lot, and I've had to ask, a lot. Initially, I had to really work on identity. A lot of my internal work had to do with identity. So I had taken that leap, which is already signaling, broadcasting to the universe, to life, to, the malleable kind of quantum reality around us. I'm signaling that, okay, because this is the thing, like I was at Gaia, and I felt discontented or dissatisfied with certain aspects of my life. Again, nothing to do with Gaia, just with me and where I'm at and what I believed I was capable of creating and experiencing and living. And it had to do with many different factors, like not seeing my kids enough and all these things. And so I sat there, and after a certain while of tallying, okay, don't like this, I don't like this, I want this, this, and the other, I'm like, I am the only one that's keeping myself here. I cannot outsource. Well, they don't want to do this or they don't want to do that. Like, valid, but whatever. That doesn't help you, right? And you can try to make a change within, but at the same time, like, that wasn't my path. My path was to actually step out with love and with grace and have a great relationship with them, But for me, it was like, I am the only one that's keeping myself here. My reality is exactly the reflection of what I believe I deserve, what I believe I am, what I believe I am capable of. So if I'm scraping by, if I'm living paycheck to paycheck, if I'm feeling stressed, if I'm feel depleted, if I don't feel like I have enough time or support and I'd never get to see my kids, and when I do, I'm exhausted, which was definitely my situation. Who is responsible? I am. At the end of the day, I'm the only one that's responsible for that. So if I want a different mirror image to look in, I need to change the one that's looking into the mirror, right? Because sometimes I feel like we're trying to change things in the mirror, but we don't realize that in order for this to change, we need to change from in here. So I had to do a lot of work around my belief systems, and so much, like I think only 5%, maybe less, of our thoughts and our behaviors are conscious. Everything else, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Everything else is below. So much of how we behave, what we believe, even what's like running quietly in the background of our minds, is ancestral, is things that we've accumulated through life. A lot of belief systems from childhood that don't serve us at all. Could be stuff from our family and the way that they, had to cope through life and survive. And so I had to do a deep dive into, okay, what do I actually believe? And I think I had a lot of contraction and fear around a certain level of visibility. There's a part of me that knew I was meant for that path. I've known it since I was really young. And there's a part of me that felt, okay, but if I'm this visible, is it going to trigger these family members? Is it going to trigger this? Am I going to be able to hold it? Am I going to, get certain types of reactions from the outer world, And so a lot of it had to do with identity. And I also did a lot of visualization work, very somatic, so not just in the mind, but a lot of visualization work where I would tap into the version of me, my ideal version, 3, 5, 10 years from now. And I would visualize her and her lifestyle, most of all, not even like what was actually physically happening, although that was a part of it, but how did she feel? How did she operate? And I would try to pull her into all of my decisions and ways of being as much as possible in the present, to bring that, to kind of collapse that timeline and bring her closer to me. And I felt like my future self was guiding me 6 months out, This version of me, I felt like, was calling to me in July and saying, you want to come this way, you want to come this way, and here's why. And so me really listening to that and operating from a level of like, okay, if I want to create this type of student, if I want to live this type of lifestyle, and this is the contribution I want to make, I need to act like that person today. Within certain, within reason. Obviously, I'm not going to, I don't know, not that I have a desire to have a private jet, but to go get a private jet. Like, obviously, it needs to be within reason. But how do I operate?
Come on, private jets. Every
Private jet, it's
good
top of my
founder needs
list.
a private jet.
It's top of my list, so it's nothing crazy indulgent, so to speak. But I did start operating, okay, well, would this person give this type of dynamic the time of day, personally and professionally? And I would just start becoming way more boundaried about my life and the way that and what, could flow in and out. And I started acting like the person that I wanted to be. And by doing that, I actually, what they, in the spiritual realm, they call collapsing the timelines. And I started becoming that person. So it's not about, okay, if I get A, B, C, D, E, and if I get to this point, then I become that person. It's like, no, you become that person today, and those things will become a vibrational match for you, and they'll stop finding you, because now you're broadcasting a completely different signal to the universe, and the universe responds. It agrees. It's like, okay, yeah, you believe that about yourself. We agree. We agree. It's not it's not your mother that when you're pouting and you're sad and upset and you're like, this isn't going, it's not going to come in and comfort you. It's going to agree and say, oh, you don't like that? Here's more of that. You're constantly thinking about it. I'm going to give you more of that, give you more of that, give you more of that, So I had to really, completely continue to investigate my subconscious belief systems. And then I had a lot of deeply somatic practices to get it out of my body. A lot of what I would call sacred sorrow, sacred rage, a lot of venting and purging, going into creating the container for me to just vent everything that I was so terrified of what could possibly happen, and sit with it and feel it and let it flow through the body, and then come to a place of, whether it was through breath work or meditation or just like holding myself and seeing the reeling little girl underneath of it and saying, you're safe in this. You're safe for the next step. You are capable, overcoming a lot of imposter syndrome. Can I do this? Can I do this? Especially when things started going, which is the second part of your question. When things started flowing in, I was receiving investment and I had no corporation yet. I had no bank account to put it in. So I was like, okay, like this is moving so much faster than I could imagine, because I was so focused on the internal work that now the next day I get a phone call and I was like, whoa. Sometimes when I would feel stuck, and this is again maybe where my feminine aspect comes in, there's a part of me that that would want to go into strategy, or like, oh, if I do more outreach, if I do more this, all the linear stuff. And I'm not saying that doesn't have to get done. It does. Otherwise nothing happens. Nothing will come falling out of the sky. But whenever I would feel activated in some way, I would actually take a break and say, I'm not in a space where this opportunity or this money or this person or this type of reality can be a match for me, because I'm dysregulated. I'm all over the place. I feel triggered. I feel activated. I feel scared. So my most important step is actually coming back to myself, doing whatever it is that I need to do, whether it's a bath, a walk, some movement, some dance, very non-linear feminine practices, really, to come back to like, okay, who am I? And to really calm myself down. And I kid you not, every single time I would do that for a few hours, which seems maybe to the tech bro or whoever else, is like, that's so unproductive. Like, that's not the way. Now you're just like moving around like the room and like releasing. Like, how is that getting you anywhere? And I kid you not, it's self-regulation. I am the nervous system of my business. So whenever I would come back to myself and feel, the release, the expansion, I've just cleared so much for more to come in, I would turn on my phone and there it was, the email, the phone call, every single time. And then that would create the trust and the momentum that actually the most important thing is not so much what I am doing all the time, but more who I am being and what I believe about myself, because people can smell that from miles away. And that's the signal that you broadcast constantly. So I would say that that's been most of the work, that's been required of me. And it continues to happen. Now I'm at a space where I can expand and scale, and I'm like, I felt the contraction again. So I'm like, okay, what is this? Like what is that based in? Do the breath work, do the deep, feel it, and then release it, and then clear it so that you can attract more. So yes.
I love that. Let me just, two thoughts on that before we
Sure.
go on. One is, I just noticed you said, and then I turned on my phone and I had this email or whatever. That means you turned off your phone.
I did.
Right. Like, I think that's a critical self-care step that
It
people
is.
often are just like, I couldn't do that. What if an investor called me or emailed me or whatever?
They can wait a few hours.
Yeah. Shocking, right?
Shocking. Yes. And maybe that's I'm going to say maybe something that's slightly outrageous for a podcast, but this is part, and maybe again it's a feminine thing, but it's something that I would invite men maybe potentially to consider as well. This is the thing, like it's multifold. Like, what's truly for you will not pass you by. What's truly for you will not pass you by. And what isn't for you, there's nothing you can force and contort yourself and try to manipulate your way into. There's nothing you can do to make it yours. If it's not for you, it's not for you. So knowing in that, resting in that, what's truly for you will not pass you by. So you turning your phone off for a few hours to just reset, it's probably only going to make you more desirable, honestly. And then this is how I approach business. Again, very feminine, potentially outrageous to say, but I like to operate from the egg principle, and I joke about this within my team and stuff. What does that mean? And I operate this in all areas of life, I'm the egg. And this is a feminine thing, right? So I talk about polarity in everything, but also in business. It's like the egg doesn't go around chasing the sperm. She doesn't, right? She sends out the message. She actually does chemically too. There's a message of availability and I'm here and I'm ready. But she doesn't go around constantly doing that. She sits in her magnetism. She emanates who she is. And the egg is queenly in that sense, you know? The moment the egg tries to act like moving towards whether, you know, for women that is in relationships or in dating or, you know, reaching or over grasping for opportunities. And I'm not saying like when the right thing comes in, be passive. Definitely be dynamic, definitely follow up, definitely know when the alignment is there and ride that momentum. But I think for me, like knowing that the things that I seek are seeking for me just as much, because there's an inevitability of allyship and alliance and non-linear magical ways in which things happen. Never make me feel like I'm going to miss out if I reset. Like this Christmas break, I took 3.5 weeks off. People are like, unheard of. How do you do that? I was like, I'm in Costa Rica. I'm on a horse right now. I don't want to open a screen. Don't want to look at a screen. And there's I felt a little bit of, can I afford that? Can I do that? And I would look around and see some of my friends that are in similar positions that don't do that. And I had to remind myself, no, I actually really need this full recharge, like really reminding myself of why I'm doing this all to come back and then be fully focused and locked in again, which is exactly what happened. So yeah, trusting that what's for you will not pass you by. And I will say also, like, to share a little bit, which is where you and I met, you know, at the summit, Impact Accelerator Summit. I got pulled into that very last minute, very synchronistic, had very little prepped my pitch a week beforehand, was so busy with other things that I recorded myself and would just listen to myself so I could try to memorize it, you know, while driving, while on the plane. And so I had very little time of prep for that. As you know, ended up winning that. I didn't know it was a competition, but I feel like a lot of that had to do with feeling like I wasn't there to pitch. You know, I didn't know it was a competition at all. I just felt like, okay, this is an opportunity to be the egg, to share, you know, from my heart, from my soul, like what my contribution is. And anyone that's going to feel aligned is going to be there. And everyone that is supposed to be involved in some way is going to spark. And sometimes you come to an event and no one's there, you know, and that's also okay. So I didn't feel in a position that I had to push or convince. It's more an invitation of like, hey, this is what I'm creating. This is like where we're at. This is what I believe in. And anyone that resonates, that wants to align on this, let's do it, you know? And it was actually at that event that I got my first investor. During the eye gazing, you were the third person that we did that with, that, you know, that. And so this was before anyone knew, right? Who was pitching, who's not. Like, we were just like doing these activation, empowering exercises. And the woman right before you and I connected, we were eye gazing and I had no idea who she was. I'm connecting with her as a human being, right? And after 4 minutes of this, we're both crying and we're seeing each other at a very deep level. And after this, she leans in and she says, I don't know who you are, but the level of healing I just received, you know, whatever it is, I'm an investor, whatever it is, I have to invest in it. And so this is one example of how all my investors have come to me through non-linear magical ways. None of it was me sitting here pushing and doing crazy outreach, to be honest. You know, I do that as well, but I just believe that it's not so much about what you're doing, but it's about who you are and trusting that you'll be in the right place at the right time.
So next question.
Yes.
What is one of the best professional investments that you've made in yourself over the last year?
That's a good question. My business hasn't actually made that many investments up to this point. I will say that we've created synergistic relationships and strategic partnerships that has made everyone win and kind of do this together. We are coming now to the point where we can scale and where I'm able to hire. And I think I'm at the crossroads now where I think, you know, I'm carrying a lot. I'm in production for 2 documentaries, both production and pre-production, each of which I'm producing and directing, which is one of them is a full-time job. So I'm doing both. And I'm screenwriting my narrative feature film, and I'm the main producer on that. I'm the actors in that. So there's a lot going on. So I'm in charge of investor relations. I'm writing, I'm producing, I'm speaking to agents for my documentary, speaking to talent all the time. I'm very busy, very full. And so it's come to the point where I'm wanting to hire and wanting to delegate and offload some of the things that, especially to do with a lot of production admin and production coordination, which I'm good at and actually do enjoy, but I just want to create the space and time for me to continue to be the beating heart and the healthy nervous system of this business, of this company, of this greater project, of this studio. And that requires for me to be able to see the big picture. I'm the big picture thinker. I can do all the detailed stuff, and I did it a lot at Gaia, but if I really want to be who I am and be in my full power and essence there and be most effective, it's as the visionary, it's as the creative, it's as the person that's show running rather than doing all the production logistics on top of that. So I'm at a point where I've realized I can do it, but at what cost and how sustainable is this? So now I'm actually exactly at the point where I'm wanting to hire and formalize some of the more of the partnerships that I've been in a formal way, so to speak, and bring people on to take on different bits so I can stay where I want to be. I think that's going to be the biggest investment I've made, and, comes with some contraction, because there's a part of me that's like, I can keep doing this. I can carry it all. I can play all roles. But again, in the long run, when I tap into future self, 10 years from now, who's running a big studio with departments and divisions, like, what is she telling me? She's telling me, you want to start now. You have the ability. You've got to believe and trust that things are going to continue to grow. If they take care of this, all the space and time and energy opens up for you to step into the emergent and to start scaling in more creative, visionary ways, right? Rather than just doing all the logistics step by step. So I think that's what's going to be my biggest investment. And I would say beyond that, up to this point, I would say relationships, again, a lot of strategic partnerships, and also modalities and courses that were really focused actually not on business, but more so on life purpose. And so all of this work that I've been sharing, I've done through some courses. Some of it's my own, kind of modalities that I've come to within myself, or I've been carrying for a long time. But I've also taken some courses here and there that allow me to scale and to grow and to expand and to be fulfilled and effective as a business owner, as an artist, as a woman also, that start from the inside out. So I think most of my investments up to now have been in that, and then moving forwards, it's that, but at a different level. Like, what can I delegate? Yeah.
Great. It sounds like the biggest investment is tied in with your biggest challenge, and you're expecting to make your biggest investment to help solve your biggest challenge.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The hardest part, or I don't know, a hard part of being a founder is learning how to stop doing things you're good at so that you can focus on the things that only you can do.
Exactly. That's very
So,
wise. Yeah. That's exactly the point where I'm at now. So I've been talking to my team. I've been meditating on it. I've been really sitting with it. Okay, what do I now that this is more established and it's happened pretty fast, which I'm so thrilled and grateful for. Now what? If I want to bring this to 7 figures in a year, not just for the money, but for the stability and for the establishment of my company, like what choices do I need to make now, that feel exciting, that don't feel like I'm going too far too fast, but that feel aligned and that feel like the next step. And you've got to continue to be bold, right? You've got to continue to take risks. Don't fabricate them. Don't artificially try to find them or create them and be like, oh, I'm going to be bold in this area for no reason. I do feel like, you start to get feedback around you, and your body gives you feedback, and your energy levels start giving you feedback. And then you start realizing, okay, maybe I need some help here. And actually I have the means to do that. So let's do that, and yeah. And also, I love it. I cannot wait for the day that I have just departments and staff, and really, because I'm a very generous person. I want to rise together, and I can't wait to call up those people and be able to offer them a job and create together. I'm excited for that. So
that's great. So, Julie, if there's somebody out there listening and they really vibe with what you're talking about and they want to support Lila Studios, who are you trying to meet? Like, what kind of intros can people do for you?
so interesting. I would say the main one is investors right now. And it's interesting. I've had some offers from investors that are trying to invest into my company. And I've not I'm sitting with it. I'm not closed off to it, but I am in an interesting position as I am in full transparency, learning business and learning business, so to speak, and running a company. I have no exit strategy in the sense that I have no plan on building this to leave. This is just an extension of my dharma and my purpose, and we'll see where it goes. But I'm trying to create legacy through this. So I don't having investors, into my company and having equity and stuff. I'm not completely closed off to it. I'm considering it, but it's not something I necessarily need at this point. But I am looking for as investors for my feature film Echo. That follows a traditional film financing structure. That's going really, really well. We've closed the development round on that. I'm finalizing the screenplay. We have an amazing director attached whose first film is on Netflix, who's brilliant, one of my good friends. And so that's moving. And that was also a kind of a situation where one of my mentors and, some of my team that I've spoken to, like, it's unheard of that they're investing six figures into this project that you don't even have a script for. Like, that is unheard of in the film industry. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I literally don't know. There is no strategy. There's no like film, I haven't gone the mainstream route. I've just been.
Oh, this isn't how it's supposed to be?
Right. And
okay.
I spoke to my friend the other day who's been in film for decades and big films. And he was just like shocked, like, at what had happened in the past 6 months. He's like, people are trying to raise money for films left, right, and center. And like, no one's able to get a dime. Like, how did you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't pay attention to the negative narratives around me, or like, oh, the industry's dying, or oh, this. I just don't pay attention to that. I just stay focused on the vision and the heart and the excitement I feel, and really like the depth of the message of this film. That's why it's my magnum opus. If I say anything, this is what I want to say. That's how I feel about this film. If I only get to say one thing, here's what I want to say, which brings a lot of oomph behind it, and people feel that and resonate with that. So I'm looking, we're opening our production financing round pretty soon once the screenplay is done in the next 6 weeks or so. And so I need investors for that. I'm also starting to look at team, both cast, crew, and any type of strategic partnerships, anyone that's worked or has any interest or inclination to work for a production company or for a film studio in whatever capacity. I need production coordinators. I need maybe just people that know the industry well and that know how to scale and that know, of course, I have people that in my field that have that, but any additional, I'm always open to having a conversation with. I would say investors and potential allies, strategic partnerships, I'm very open to and interested in.
Great. Thanks so much, Giulia.
Thank you so much.
So that's all the time we have for today. This has been Founder Real Talk, where we get down to the nitty-gritty journey of being a founder, walking across the bridge over the chasm and trying to figure out how to look ahead and take one more step. So I'm so grateful that you took time to be with us, Giulia, and we'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes. Anybody else out there who's listening, if you want to talk about scale and becoming a better leader, hit us up. This is what we're all about. Thanks.
Thank you.